I never thought my own children would look at me like I was nothing more than an inconvenience, the burden, something to be managed, controlled, and eventually erased from my own life. Before I tell you what happened, I want you to tell me something. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments. I ask because sometimes when I read your messages, I realize something very important. I'm not alone in this, and maybe neither are you. Now listen carefully because what I'm about to share with you didn't just break my heart, it changed my entire understanding of family. My name is Patricia Walsh, and I'm 73 years old. And until recently, I believed family meant love, respect, and protection. I was wrong. Let me take you back to where everything started falling apart. I was married to my husband Robert for 47 years. 47 years of building a life together, of sacrifices, savings, raising children, and planning a future we thought would be peaceful. Robert passed away 3 years ago. A sudden heart attack. One moment he was there and the next he was gone. After his death, I didn't just lose my husband. I lost my direction. But I still had something to hold on to. My children. Jennifer, my daughter. 46 years old, married, 2 teenage boys. Michael, my son. 43 years old, married, 1 daughter. At first, they were everything I could hope for. They visited often, checked on me, helped me with small things, made sure I was eating properly. For a while, I believed maybe grief had brought us closer.
But slowly something changed.
It always starts slowly. Jennifer began questioning everything I did. The car I bought, the way I spent money. Even small decisions started becoming discussions that felt more like interrogations. Mom, do you really need something this expensive? That was the first sentence that made me pause.
Need?
I wasn't asking for permission to live, but somehow I had started feeling like I should. Then Michael joined in. But differently. He didn't question my spending directly. Instead, he started acting like I was incapable of managing my own life. Let me introduce you to my financial advisor. You're not updated on modern investing. You need help managing your portfolio. Funny thing is, I wasn't some inexperienced woman. I had worked as a hospital administrator for 30 years. I had managed budgets bigger than most companies. But to them, I was suddenly someone who didn't understand anything anymore. That's when I noticed the shift. They weren't treating me like a mother. They were treating me like a retirement fund. Then came the visits. At first, it was concern. Then curiosity. Then control. Jennifer started coming unannounced, checking my mail, asking about my bank statements. Michael started pushing for joint access to my accounts. Just in case something happens, he said. But what something? I was healthy. I was active. I was alive. And yet, they spoke like I was already fading away. Then came the suggestion that changed everything. You should downsize the house, Mom. Too big for one person. We can help you find a nice condo. A nice condo. As if my life, my memories, my 47 years of marriage could be packed into something nice and small. But I still stayed silent, because I told myself they're just worried. Then I made one mistake. I mentioned George, a man I met at a grief support group, a retired veterinarian.
Kind.
Respectful. Gentle. Nothing dramatic. Just companionship. But the moment I mentioned him, everything changed. You're dating? Jennifer's voice cracked like glass. Dad hasn't even been gone that long. Michael leaned in. Mom, men target wealthy widows. You need to be careful. And suddenly, George wasn't a man. He was a threat. A problem.
A danger. A mistake.
Within 2 weeks, I ended things with him. Not because I wanted to, but because my home became a battlefield every time his name was mentioned. And that's when I realized something painful. I wasn't living my life anymore. I was managing their approval. And that was just the beginning. Because after that, the requests started. Mom, can you help with tuition? Mom, just a small loan. Mom, we're short this month. At first, I helped. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Because that's what mothers do, right? They help. They support.
They give.
But slowly it stopped being help. It became expectation. And expectation turned into entitlement. And entitlement turned into control. Then came the meeting. The moment I will never forget. Jennifer called. Said it was important family discussion. They arrived with folders. Printed documents. Serious faces. Like lawyers. Not children. And then Jennifer spoke. Mom, we've been consulting professionals. Without me. We think you should sign power of attorney. Michael added. For your protection. Protection. Funny word. Because what followed was not protection. It was control. They wanted access to everything. My accounts. My house. My decisions. Even my freedom. And then they said it. The sentence that broke something inside me. You're getting older, Mom. You don't understand things anymore. I remember staring at them. 2 people I raised. 2 people I protected. 2 people I sacrificed for. And they were telling me I was no longer capable of being me. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Silently. Like a door closing. I stood up. And I said the only thing I could. Get out. They froze. They didn't expect resistance. Because for years, I didn't resist. But that day, I did. And they left. But they didn't stop. Not even close. Because what came next was worse. After that night, I thought things would calm down. I was wrong. Silence from them didn't mean peace. It meant planning. Behind my back, Jennifer stopped visiting. Michael stopped calling as often. At first, I told myself maybe they were giving me space. But then I started noticing something strange. Small things. My friends began acting different. One of them casually mentioned, Jennifer called me yesterday. She sounded worried about your memory. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. My memory? I had no issues. But now a story was being written about me without me. Then came Michael's move. He contacted my doctor, and asked if I had shown signs of cognitive decline. When I found out, I felt something I can't even describe. Not anger, not sadness. Something colder.
Clarity.
They weren't just worried. They were building a case to take control of me and my life. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking, when did I stop being their mother and start becoming their target? The next morning, I did something I never thought I would do. I called my lawyer, Sharon, a calm, sharp woman who had helped with Robert's estate. I told her everything. Every visit, every request, every manipulation, every pressure. When I finished, she didn't hesitate. Patricia, she said firmly, this is financial abuse. Those words stayed in the air. Financial abuse. From my own children. She continued, they're not protecting you. They're positioning themselves. That word positioning stayed in my mind all day. Because suddenly everything made sense. The concern, the visits, his suggestions, the fear they created. It was all a strategy. And I was the target. Sharon leaned forward. Have you signed anything? No, good. Then we take control back. And that's exactly what I decided. For the first time in years, I stopped reacting and started acting. Quietly, carefully, professionally, I began restructuring everything. My accounts, my will, my trust documents, everything.
Piece by piece.
Jennifer and Michael were listed everywhere. Beneficiaries, emergency contacts, access points. So I removed them, one by one, not in anger, in silence. Then I added something else. Protection layers, legal locks, fraud alerts, restricted access. Everything documented, everything secured. Then I did something even more important. I stopped giving them money.
Completely.
The reaction didn't come immediately. It came in waves. First, confusion. Then frustration. Then panic. Jennifer called. Mom, something's wrong with the card. I knew exactly what was wrong. I removed your access, I said calmly. Silence. Then her voice cracked. You can't do that. I already did. That was the first time she realized something had changed, that I was no longer reacting emotionally, that I was responding legally. Michael reacted differently. Anger. Pure anger. This is ridiculous, Mom. You're ruining everything. No, I said quietly. You did that when you tried to control my life. And then I hung up. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Control.
Not over them. Over myself. But they weren't done. Because the real fight wasn't about money anymore. It was about authority. About who gets to decide what happens to my life. The next escalation came fast. Jennifer tried again. But this time through social circles. Friends. Neighbors. Even distant relatives. I'm worried about her mental state, she told them. Michael went further. He contacted an attorney.
To explore guardianship.
Guardianship, that word made everything crystal clear. They weren't trying to help me anymore. They were trying to replace me. Legally, Sharon shut it down immediately. She is fully competent, she said. And everything she owns is protected. For the first time, their plan was collapsing. And they felt it. That's when the anger turned into desperation. And desperation always makes people careless. Jennifer showed up uninvited one evening. No call. No warning. Just standing at my door. Her face was tense.
We need to talk, she said.
I let her in. Bad decision, I thought later. Because she didn't come to talk. She came to pressure. Mom, this has gone too far. You're hurting the family. No, I replied calmly. I'm protecting myself. Michael arrived 20 minutes later. Like backup. Like support. But really like reinforcement. They both sat across from me. And then it started again. The same cycle. Control dressed as concern. Concern dressed as fear. Fear dressed as love. Sign the documents. Trust us. You don't understand modern finance. You're vulnerable. And then finally the line I will never forget. You're old, Mom. Just listen to us. Something inside me went still. Not emotional. Not reactive. Still. And I said quietly, no, that was it. One word. But it ended the conversation. Because for the first time they realized I wasn't going to break. Jennifer's face changed. Michael leaned forward. We can take legal steps if we have to. And I looked at them and said something I didn't even know I had in me. Then do it. Silence. Heavy silence. Because they expected fear. Not resistance. They left that night angry. But something had shifted permanently. And I knew it. Because now it was no longer a family disagreement. It was a line drawn. And I had chosen my side. After that night, everything changed completely. Not in a loud way. Not instantly. But in a way that felt like pressure building behind closed doors. The kind of silence that isn't peaceful, it's strategic. For a few days, I heard nothing from Jennifer or Michael. No calls, no visits, no arguments. But I knew better now. Silence from them was never peace. It was preparation. And I was right. It started small again. A phone call here. A message there. But not to me. To my friends. To my relatives. Even to people I hadn't spoken to in years. The story was spreading. She's not thinking clearly. She's being influenced. She's changed. They weren't just angry anymore. They were building a narrative. A version of me that needed to be handled. And then came the real move. Michael contacted a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A guardianship attorney. That word hit me harder than anything before. Guardianship. It means someone else decides your life. Your money. Your choices. Your freedom. All gone. Sharon called me immediately after. They're escalating, she said calmly. But they have no case. Still, I could feel it. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to pressure. Emotionally, socially, legally. And they were using everything they had. Even my grandchildren were mentioned in conversations I was not part of. That hurt more than anything. Because now it wasn't just about money. It was about rewriting reality.
But something inside me had already changed.
I wasn't scared anymore. I was prepared. Quietly, I strengthened everything. Every account locked tighter. Every document double verified. Every legal boundary reinforced. No more weak points, and more access. Then I made one final decision. I wrote letters. Not angry ones. Not emotional ones. Clear ones, to Jennifer. To Michael. I told them the truth. Not the version they wanted. Not the version they created. The real one. That I loved them. But I would not be controlled. Not threatened. Not managed like an asset. And if respect didn't exist, access wouldn't either. I sent them. Certified mail. And then I waited. The reaction came faster than I expected. Jennifer called first. Her voice shaking. Mom, you really meant it. Yes, I said quietly. There was a long silence. Then she broke. Not with anger this time. With panic. Do you understand what you've done? Everything is falling apart. And for the first time, I heard it clearly. Not concern for me. Concern for consequences.
Michael called later that night.
But his tone was different. Controlled.
Cold.
We didn't want it to come to this. You brought it here, I replied. Another silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're choosing yourself over your family. And I answered without hesitation.
No.
I'm choosing myself after you stopped choosing me. That line ended the call. Days passed. Then weeks. And the consequences started showing. Their access was gone. Completely. Cards declined. Accounts restricted. Lifestyle collapsing in real time. The comfort they had built around my money disappeared. And suddenly, the narrative they had created about me started cracking. Because reality doesn't respond to manipulation. It responds to limits. Jennifer called again. This time crying. Not dramatic. Real. I didn't realize how far we went, she said. And I believed her. Because it sounded different. Not entitlement. Regret.
Vomit.
For the first time in a long time, without documents, without pressure, without money involved, just two people sitting across from each other. She apologized properly. Not excuses, not justification, just acknowledgement. I forgot you were my mother, she said softly. I only saw what you could give us. That moment stayed with me because it was honest and painful. Michael didn't reach that point. Not yet. He stayed distant. Angry, defensive, still believing he was right. Still believing control was protection. But life doesn't wait for understanding. It forces consequences. And for the first time in years, I stopped being the center of their financial stability and became something else.
A person again.
I went on the river cruise I had planned, the one they called wasteful. And I didn't go alone. George came with me. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't living under pressure. And guilt.
No manipulation.
No control. Just life. One evening on the ship, I stood near the railing, watching the water move quietly under the lights. And I realized something simple. I didn't lose my children. I lost the version of them that only existed because I allowed it. And now, I was free. Not because they changed, but because I did.